Hi. I said, yeah. Welcome to South Hills Community Wellness. My name is Laura Velasic.
Jacqueline Battaglia.
Jackie and I decided to start this group because we felt like there needed to be a place that people could go to learn, connect, and collaborate on a variety of personal development, health, and wellness topics. We at South Hills Community Wellness want to welcome Sarah tonight, but I'd like to do our disclaimer first. So we have a mutual agreement between our speakers and our members that these workshops are strictly to share knowledge, value, and connect with like-minded people. South Hills Community Wellness does not agree or disagree with the content presented, nor are we promoting a service or a product. So we have everybody muted right now, and you'll be able to go in and unmute yourself if you have any questions or anything for Sarah, and you also can go into the chat if you want, and we'll keep an eye on that so she can do this. So I'd like to introduce our speaker tonight is Sarah Zeffiro, and she's an artist and educator, and she loves to use wellness to educate through art. So welcome, Sarah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Zeffiro. It's so nice to be here tonight. It's nice to share and create community where we're all able to come together and learn some new things, maybe learn from one another, ask questions and talk. It's a really interesting time as we all move to this online space and how Zoom has quickly become everybody's, we're all familiar with it in various ways, whether we've used it to connect with family members or attend a class or do something like we're doing tonight, which is creating community, talking about wellness, art, learning, and how we're bridging all of these areas and moving forward with this new time we're living in. So I'm gonna get us started by talking about some slides I brought. Right? It's more fun to look at something while I'm speaking to you all. So I'm going to hit screen share and show you all some slides. Okay, so again, welcome. My name is Sarah Zeffiro. So a little bit about me to get us started. I recently completed my master's in education. I'm a longtime arts educator. So I started teaching in 2002 at the Carnegie Museum of Art and have been there amongst various institutions over the years. So my background in learning is not coming from solely a school setting and a formal education, but rather I'm thinking about learning in a museum context. I'm thinking about learning in gallery spaces. And I'm also thinking about wellness, so yoga and creativity, and how all of those different elements can mix together and inform one another and create dynamic, powerful, and empowering experiences. So I often think of myself, I'm an artist and an educator. And what I do in the studio directly informs what I do in the classroom, and what I do in the classroom directly informs what I do in the studio. So it's absolutely 100%, it's a circle, it's cyclical. But also mixed in with that is wellness. And I think that that's really why we're here tonight, South Hills Community Wellness, right? So we're thinking about ways that we can begin to tune in and become aware, tune in and take care of our bodies and our minds and our spirits, develop healthy, positive relationships with one another, healthy, positive ways of communicating with one another. And so I also think a lot about that, especially in the classroom, and really also to take care of my own well-being too. We hear that a lot right now, which is, mindfulness, mental health. So we're all arriving at this place in time. I think technology, communication, all these different elements, there's a lot happening, a lot of visual stimulation that's constantly occurring around us. So how are we taking care of ourselves? And that's really, honestly, probably why I create art, which is it helps me understand things on a larger scale, but also helps me, it's my own therapy in a way. So art and learning, and that's what we're talking about tonight. So then the next slide. Yeah, so just again, a little bit about me. when I would describe who I am and what I do, I would say 3 words, and that is see, love, and all. So in all of my classrooms and all the relationships I build with clients and friends and family, I'm always striving to see a bigger picture. I'm always striving to be inclusive and really inclusive, and to create a learning space where students, families, teachers can feel connected and supported and safe to express themselves. So that's a little bit about my business. And again, like I work in schools, I design experiences like murals to commissions to teaching yoga. So over the years, it's been a steady flow and a steady build as far as me understanding how can I infuse the things that I love, which again are wellness, art, learning, really, and throw in there science and technology. How do I infuse all of those areas to create dynamic, empowering learning experiences? So next slide. Okay, so I'm gonna flip back one moment to say that learning for me, and for most of us, right, a traditional setting, you're receiving a teacher's saying something to the students, and the students have to perform an activity or memorize something, or then are evaluated or graded. So I think a lot about how do we empower ourselves, and how do we empower those around us to know that you can learn whatever it is you want to learn. You don't have to wait for someone to teach it to you, but rather with the right tools and an increasing of your own awareness of how you learn, you can empower yourself to learn. So those are the things, again, that I strive to do in the classroom and with myself. When I want to learn something or know something, or I have a client asks me a question and I'm not sure how to realize that, I have a set of tools, I would say, that I've practiced over the years that we're going to talk about tonight, that help me feel confident to figure it out for myself. As a side note, I worked at Apple for 5 years. And during that time, it was right during the crossover from the old, like, big clunky computers to suddenly having a computer in your hand with an iPhone. And I remember asking a friend of mine that I was standing next to in one of the stores, I asked him a question. He said, I don't know. Why don't you look it up? And I remembered that moment of total empowerment where I was like, wow, wait, I don't have to look in a book or ask someone else the question. I can actually ask the phone, or I can take it, empower myself to discover the answer. So that was a really, like, a defining moment where I realized learning doesn't have to go one way. It can go both ways. I can learn from students, and students can learn from me. We're both teaching one another. So to talk a little bit about some of the projects that I recently finished up. And ones also that always involve learning. So this is a project that I'm really proud to say I completed. And to rewind a moment, a lot of the work I do, I'm always striving to align Zeffiro Art projects with mindfulness, with healing arts, with something that will teach, something that will help others learn. So it's not that I'm just making a painting, which I do that, but I'm always thinking, how can I take it a step further to beautify, to enhance, to encourage, to empower, to teach. So Caring Place is a center downtown where students and kids and families are able to go and receive support and loving programming. So these are kids and families who've lost a loved one, and typically from unexpected situations. So they're definitely in a time where they're focused on healing, focused on wanting to feel like a sense of normalcy, and understanding their new reality, much like we all are doing nowadays with the social distancing and now having a Zoom meeting. So what the slide that you're looking at right now is a series of 10 pieces of furniture. So 8 chairs, a toy chest, and a table that I designed and painted for a toddler space at the Caring Place through Highmark. So these chairs are all different. They're meant to be positive and happy, but there's hearts all through the designs. So again, I'm not overtly saying, I'm not writing a message on it, but I'm using symbols like the heart to let kids know that they're loved, that they're supported, that they're cared for, that it's a safe space. So we work together to create this, these designs and this color palette. And so now they're at the Caring Place downtown. So that's one recent project. It's funny, I just submitted this like at the end of February. So right before we had to start social distancing. The next project to share with you is another one. So this is from 2019. And again, I'm always thinking about projects that can help people, that can encourage one another. And typically they're kid related. A lot of times they are. So this project is for a place in Braddock, PA, founded by Giselle Fetterman and Kristen Michaels. And it's called For Good. And For Good is a really, really neat home that was converted into a workspace for women entrepreneurs. But they also have an outdoor space for kids and communities for events. So it's really a place where people can go and participate in free programming, have support with starting a business to playing on the playground. So this this place is in Braddock. So Giselle and Kristen came to me and said, hey, we have this idea. We'd like to donate suitcases to kids in foster care. Would you design 30 patterns for the students, for the kids? And so I decided to use the art. So again, using like really positive and empowering symbols like hearts, butterflies, different patterns, but incorporating positive words. So Jackie, we were talking how you're a speech therapist. In this case, I'm using language on the suitcases, empowering messages like be you, sparkle, strength, like all these just encouraging messages of hope and love, so that when kids move from place to place in foster care, they have a colorful suitcase to put their belongings, to again incite and encourage a sense of pride and ownership, and again to know that they're loved and cared for. So those are two recent, not too recent, one's from 2019, one's from 2020, but projects that I was thinking a lot about. How can the art inspire? How can the art teach? And how can the art be used in a greater way? So not just a painting or a drawing, but rather how can we paint and design objects, three-dimensional objects, to empower and to encourage? So what you're looking at right now is what I call whole view learning. And it's something that, again, I wrote my thesis on this. I think about this all the time, obsessively. And it's largely how I think about projects that I involve myself in, as far as like art projects, but also learning, like teaching projects. So it's a combination of all these things. So to describe it, art and learning is in the center here. And you're seeing around art and learning 4 categories. The first category is sensory. So sensory learning. So again, we learn by using and tuning in to all of our senses. What's interesting, I think, is that a lot of us, we might only be aware of one sense or 2 senses when we're learning. So an example of this would be we're hearing something, we're writing, maybe we're reading, we're drawing. So we're only tuned in maybe to that one sense, but really all of your senses are always working, and they're always filtering information and piecing things together to deliver whatever it is that you're doing. So sensory experiences are key, because hearing, seeing, touch, taste, smell, all of those elements create an experience, and that experience can be used for learning. So in a museum or in a gallery or in the art studio, I'm always thinking about how does sound, how does play, how does touch, how does really sound, play, touch, sight, how does reading and writing, all these different elements, how do they all come together to form a learning experience? And in addition, you see that there's scaffold. So scaffold is one of my favorite words, because anytime you are learning one thing, you're building. It's a building block, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. We increase as you learn, you expand and you grow. So to create a rich learning experience, we want to think about the things that you already know and how those things that you already know can inform the things that you're about to learn or the things that you're doing currently. So it's past, it's present, and it's also future sensory learning. So curiosity is the next one. And I think in many ways, this is where it all starts. If you're not curious, you're not going to want to learn something, or you're not maybe going to be open to learning something. So curiosity is sort of to me, where it all begins. And curiosity is the desire to know or to learn something. So, and that involves your imagination. It involves intrinsic motivation. So in education, we talk a lot about intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. And if any teachers are listening, Jackie, you probably hear this at school all the time, right? When you're intrinsically motivated to do something, you're doing it because you actually want to know it for yourself. Someone's not telling you that you have to know it. If someone's telling you something, you're maybe in some way more resistant to learning it. But if you're actually naturally curious, like I'm always naturally curious to make more art, am motivated from the inside. And when I'm motivated from the inside, I'm going to be, I think, more likely to learn and to feel more confident. That's why you have confidence there. So learning is directly connected to having confidence, the self-belief that you can learn, that you are capable of learning. The next one would be language. So language can be verbal language, it can be written language, but it's also 2D and 3D. So in a few slides, you're going to see, I think of language as being shapes. I think of language as being lines. I think of language as being music. So language is communication. So how are we communicating whatever it is that we're striving to teach our students or one another? And then pattern. So pattern, we learn actually it's funny, I just taught a lesson at 5 o'clock about pattern thinking, about connecting ideas. So when you think of, we talk a lot about STEM and STEAM in schools now, and we talk a lot about how computational thinking, which is how a computer thinks. Computers think in patterns. Mathematics is patterns, right? So if we can understand patterns, and I think once we understand a pattern, and you understand that pattern can be applied to a lot of different types of learning, that can empower you, right? Practicing pattern learning can teach you to recognize the connections amongst different things that you're learning. So I like to think a lot about patterns, and I love technology. And technology is always talking about pattern thinking, computational thinking. And it's also a different way of problem solving too, like a computer. And so on the left side here, you see outside, inside, open, closed, doing, demonstrate, play, and then a little icon at the bottom, group and solo. So to define what those mean, so outside, inside, open, close, doing, demonstrate. So these, I think that you need to have a balance between, that's what yoga is about, right? It's a balance. That's what a healthy diet is about. Or when you feel good and rested, it's because you're balanced. So we need to have a balance of open and closed projects. So what does that mean? Well, open project might be an example where I come into the studio and I'm just going to play today. I'm just going to throw paint around and see what happens. I don't really have an end goal in mind. That would be an open project. So students and people need time to play. They need time to discover. Closed would be if you have a specific objective. Today, I want to paint this lion, or I want to make this sculpture, or I want to finish this paper or write this essay. There's a specific objective in mind. So open and closed. Same thing for inside and outside. So inside and outside simply means projects and spaces literally inside. So inside a classroom, inside a museum, or outside, out in nature, out walking around. So we're learning on the go, but we're also learning in formal and informal settings. So doing and demonstrating. Okay, this is an interesting one. Doing, right? I'm doing something, I'm painting. I'm just in the moment. Demonstrating, I'm showing someone how to do something. So they sound similar, but they're very different. Doing, it's happening. You're watching me, you're seeing me paint. It sort of flows effortlessly. Demonstrating, I'm teaching you how to do something. And again, I mentioned play. Play is such an important word. We're learning that, I think we're seeing that right now with students being home, with us having to be inside a little bit more. We're rethinking how are we spending our time? And so I always think of the importance of play, giving yourself permission to not do anything, but just again, to explore. And then the bottom here, group and solo. So we learn by ourselves, but we have to learn as a group. We have to learn with one another. So oftentimes, you're working on a project as an adult, you're working on a project by yourself, and then you gather together and have a meeting about it, or you collaborate. Or maybe you're sitting at a desk at school and you're working on a drawing alone, and then you come together to create a collaborative mural. So again, you need the balance of all of these elements to create rich and dynamic learning experiences. So that's the learning map. And it's funny, it's taken my whole life to put this together. A lot of like reading and thinking. But to me, it's a way that I'm trying to make sense of how we learn and the importance of balancing a lot of different moving parts within our learning. So the next slide. So see, talk, create, share. I'm always drawing and writing with the drawing because I'm always thinking of students and talking with students. And so see, talk, create, share. This is what I consider like it's a formula. So again, the theme of tonight is whole view. And the reason I call it that again is in order to see something fully, I think you have to step outside and look at it from all viewpoints. You can't be too emotional about your ideas because it's going to prevent you from finding the best solution or maybe learning something that you wouldn't have seen before. So whole view is being able to take a step back and look at something from all angles. So see, talk, create, share is my formula. Or when I think of when I work with students, in particular, I developed this with all the years at the Carnegie Museum. So again, I've been there since 2002. I teach and develop programming for 5-year-olds to elderly. So it really ranges a great span. And I'm thankful for that opportunity because I think of learning as a puzzle now. So when someone comes to me and says, hey, Sarah, will you teach this 30-minute class, this workshop for ages, for 7th graders, our topic is sculpture. I'm always thinking about how these different parts of learning can come together to form a full experience, right? Because it's always changing. So at a museum sets up learning in a really fun and different way. And I think that schools are starting to come on board more and more with this. So you're seeing this not just in museums, but you're seeing this happening in the art room to the science room to English language arts, whatever it is, you're noticing this sort of way of thinking. So seeing, talking, creating, and sharing. So in a museum, for museum education, we typically begin our classes by going and actually looking at a piece of art. So in person, whether it's a sculpture or a painting. And in the classroom, this could be a slide, or you're showing the students, you're talking about something to get their attention. They're seeing something. The next part is to ask open-ended questions. What do you think? What do you see? Again, not telling them what to think or see, but asking them, giving them a moment to absorb it, to process what it is that they're seeing, what it is that we're doing or about to do. So we talk, and that can be, again, talking amongst one another, talking with me in a group, creating. So after we see something, after we talk about it, we're then going to go back to the studio and actually make something. So again, it starts by looking at something that's 2 or 3D. We're talking about it. We're learning maybe some vocabulary words. We're learning something important, a learning objective. Then we actually make something about those things that we just learned. So we're putting that learning into practice. And that creating could be, again, building. It can be painting. It could be making a video, coding. It can be any action that you're doing, the creating part. And the last part of that formula is the sharing. And the sharing is actually verbally talking about what it is that you just created or experienced. It could be sharing it out on like social media. It could be sharing it to your class. It could be sharing it to students, other classes in the school, or to faculty members, or call a friend, or share it like what I'm doing right now on Zoom. So again, and the sharing part too reaffirms what you've learned, what you've created. So these 4 words work together to teach you something, but also to help you put in practice whatever it is you just learned. So what you're seeing here is, again, a recent class that I just finished teaching literally in March, like March 11th, that weekend was our show. And I've been working with this group of high school students for, since October. So the very beginning of October. So for 4 months, so October to the middle of March. And this was a group of high school students that met every Saturday. They applied to this program. This is through the museum, the Carnegie Museum. They're all high school students who are interested in pursuing art or developing their art. And really, the way that, again, that I like to set up most of my classes, I give a lot of autonomy. So I really, really want to empower students to discover for themselves. And so this class quickly became this like cool Saturday art community where the students began spending really the whole day with me. So they were there for the most part from 9 until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And each week we had maybe a couple of hours, I'd say, of open studio time where they were developing project ideas themselves. We would have time in the galleries, and then we would have time talking with one another at the beginning and also at the end. So this time was less about them making something specific and more about empowering themselves to think of their ideas, to develop their ideas, to spend time with one another. So talking and asking questions within their group, and really having some one-on-one time with me too. So during the making time, the open studio time, I would spend about, honestly, probably we're talking like close to 20, 25 minutes each week with most students. And I'd also document. So I was always walking around taking pictures. So again, having them, encouraging them to become more reflective of the work they're making, and encourage through me by just asking them questions. So there's a lot we can do by just talking. There's a lot we can do by just asking somebody a question. That right there is the gateway or the key, I think, sometimes to start learning, to start friendship, to start conversation. And at the bottom here, you can see in the bottom left corner is an example of, we set up a student exhibit at the end. It actually was in one of my old studios, which was really cool. And we hung their work, and it was just this really celebratory time for them to really to become proud and take ownership of the work that they had created all semester and share it with family and friends. And then I love this quote at the bottom: art shows the thoughts of others. And that's a pretty profound quote from a 17-year-old, Jonathan. And our grid with everyone's faces is covering up the last quote, but it's something about art helps us realize things that are in our imagination, and Jenna wrote that one. So this is a recent class. And another aspect that that's important is, again, creating that community. So each week the students, again, we had this show. I was always talking and encouraging them to talk with one another. But we also did something, as it seems simple, but it was a big deal. We made a group playlist. So I had my laptop set up in the classroom, and the students each week could drag tracks that were important to them. So it was another way for them to share with one another a little bit more about who they are and the things that they like and that are important to them. So it's about art, but really ultimately it's about empowering, it's about creativity, and it's about, again, giving them the tools so that they know that they don't need me to learn. By knowing the right questions or knowing questions to ask and having maybe a tablet or access to the internet, they're able to empower themselves to discover the answers to their own questions. So here's another example of what I would consider language. So language, this is some artwork that I've created. And the language in this case is shapes and it's lines, and it's also incorporating some familiar symbols. So I don't know if you can tell, but the top one on the left, whoa, actually, are you seeing the work behind me? The artwork behind me is actually the work you're seeing here in the slides. And it's to celebrate Pittsburgh architecture. It's also, it could be used for toddlers to teach them shapes, for counting, for design. There's a lot of my artwork always is, again, multi-layered. I always think about how somebody really small, like a kindergarten or first grader, can relate to the artwork or interact with the artwork, and how somebody in their 70s or 80s can interact with or relate to artwork. I think about all age ranges. And again, I think largely that has to do with always teaching in all these different capacities. So I'm always thinking about all audiences, all age ranges, and how I can design a message that's relatable to all these different age groups. They're all going to learn something different, but that to ensure that there's something for everybody. So this, again, this artwork is design, and it's inspired by architecture, by cities. You can see there's like bridges, there's shapes, lines, so movement, water, something for everyone. So this slide, I love this slide. So this is an example of that inside outside. And this is a project that I submitted to, I worked at the Children's Museum for a period of time. And while I was there, I really began to understand learning in a different way. So what I mean when I say that is learning from curriculum. So writing, interactive curriculum. They have a really great space there with where kids can silk screen to climb on sculptures. So a lot of different interactive elements, but also understanding learning from a production or a design aspect. So how do you actually build an exhibit and create an exhibit or a learning experience? So what you're looking at right now, it's a project called City of Shapes, and it is intended to connect indoor play and sculpture to outdoor architecture. And I'm using shapes. I'm always thinking about shapes because shapes make up everything we see in nature. Shapes are everything, right? We go outside, think about PPG and the triangles. Think about your garage. It's probably a square or a rectangle, right? Or something in your home, in your kitchen. Your cereal box is a rectangle. So I'm always thinking about how shapes are a great gateway for teaching. And so City of Shapes uses shapes like triangles, rectangles, and squares, and creates different sculptures, so it connects three-dimensional play. So the idea is that you would have these shapes as building blocks, like large building blocks where toddlers or adults would come in and actually stack and play with them. But they'd also have a scavenger hunt where they could go outside and find those shapes within Pittsburgh architecture. So you could do like a walking tour, or maybe you would have a bus tour, you could drive in your car. So again, it's creating thoughtful learning experiences that whatever the learning objective is, it's showing you, it's teaching you using 2D, 3D, it's using creativity, it's play, it's building. So it's infusing all of these different sensory elements to create a dynamic learning experience. So that was City of Shapes. And oh, that's the last slide. So again, to recap a little bit, let's buzz through them one more time before we open it up for questions. So art and learning, right? Creativity. So my background, again, I'm an artist. I design, I use the word design because I think of when someone asks me to create a project, I think about, well, how can I realize this project? What's the best medium? And that could be a painting, it could be a small painting or a large painting. It could be a sculpture or something that is infuses art, painting, sculpture, and technology. And I'm always designing and thinking about these learning experiences to teach. And the wellness, again, comes into that because I'm always thinking about mindfulness. I'm thinking about tuning into your awareness. When we tune into these elements, we are actually able to empower ourselves to feel really healthy and strong, but also to learn, right? You have the tools to empower yourself to learn whatever it is you want to learn. And that's what I strive to do in everything that I'm doing. So all of my projects and all the classes that I teach always are driving that one element, which is to empower you that you can do the same thing, you can learn. So See Love All is sort of my my motto for everything that I do, whether it be for projects I'm creating for clients to the way that I'm interacting with students in the classroom. So it's creating inclusive, loving, safe experiences. So again, for empowerment and to build confidence. Some projects, again, that I worked on, High Mark Herring Plays, For Good. Again, these are putting art on three-dimensional objects, again, meant to empower, to encourage. And then the learning map, which we were talking a little bit, probably a lot about, a learning map, which wellness is all of this. Wellness sort of, it's all of these elements. So again, being a yoga instructor, being someone who is always thinking about how are we tuning in? How are we beginning our art class? So briefly, I was student teaching this past fall, and I was student teaching at Banksville Elementary. Some of you are familiar with that school. And the art teacher there, he's awesome. We start every single class with mindfulness. The students, every grade walks into that classroom and they close their eyes and they know that they need to start their breathing. And as a result, better learning, increased learning, decrease in behavior challenges. So again, that mindfulness, that wellness is, in my opinion, absolutely integral to learning and to your growth and confidence. And then we talked about the See, Talk, Create, Share. So ways to think about your learning. So we're seeing something, we're talking about it, we're creating something based on what we saw and what we talked about, and then we're sharing it with one another. And then just an example of how I set up some of my class or learning experiences. This happened to be at the museum with high school students. And then an example of language and learning through design, so through artwork. A curriculum example that includes 3D, 2D, inside and outside. This could be set up in a museum, it could be set up in a gallery, or it's something that you could just do on your own at home, create blocks and go find those shapes in nature. And that's about it. So at this point, I'm going to, I think, stop screen sharing, and Jackie is going to unmute everybody, and we're going to open up the rest of our time tonight for some questions. Thank you so much for listening to all that. I really appreciate it. It was really fun.
Thank you so much. I mean, that was, I mean, as an educator myself, I mean, that was really just full circle. Just even some of the language that you used, you know, just like when we teach, like how can we spark that curiosity in children and have them gain that confidence to ask the question and making it more of a two-way street. I mean, wow, you just I mean, I just got so many great ideas from you. You know, I really liked, I mean, I took notes like crazy, just how, you know, the see, the talk, the create, the share, like that's something that I think like my sessions as a speech therapist, it's about 30 minutes, but I mean, that's something that, you know, what like great balance that is, you know, to introduce something.
I was like, I'm wondering if Jackie does things like this in the classroom. And I thought of you the whole time as I was talking.
But that's such a nice way to break it up. Like, here's what we, you know, what we're gonna look at, and then, you know, what will that conversation bring?
Yes.
And what can we make, and then how can we share? That was really, wow. Thank you.
That can apply to any topic. It's not just art, it's anything.
Oh, for sure. Anything. And then that brings in, you know, the input of each individual child too. I think it gives them the opportunity to make a connection based off of their past and their experiences. And so that was just, I have like goosebumps. So you said that you're available between 5 and 6, right? On Instagram and YouTube. People can tune into that.
Yes, thank you for that reminder. So it's, again, we're transitioning to online learning. So I saw this as an opportunity to share more of the art to a larger audience, especially, again, being that a lot of us are at home right now. So from 5 to 6 p.m., you can tune in to Instagram Live. So the handle is at Zeffiro Art, ZEFFIROART, Zeffiro Art on Instagram. And from 5 to 6 p.m., you can create along, or you can listen, or you can bring you or a friend. I mean, I structure each of the lessons so that they're going to teach someone some vocabulary. We're going to learn something positive, but really it's something for everybody. You can create along with your toddler to a high school student. You know, you can adapt whatever I'm saying and doing to meet whatever age you are, or bring whatever your experiences are. And then if you can't make that 5 to 6 p.m., you can catch up and watch some of the other episodes on YouTube at Zeffiro Art again. So they're just me with my phone, literally in the studio, just talking to the camera, but making art. And it's been really fun. And again, another way to share the love of creativity with those. So yeah, 5 to 6 p.m. And I'll be doing that to the end of May. So till the end of like the school year. But you can keep watching those episodes and see what I'm up to. I'm always changing projects up. But I'm loving the Instagram Live. That's a great way to connect. And the Zoom and Facebook Live, all of that.
I had fun watching you do your rocks and your garden with the flowers.
That's awesome. You tuned in. I
just sat myself and watched.
You know what's funny? My mom's joined in. I see her in the corner here. And I see you too, Joanne. And my mom's like, I don't know how you can talk about painting rocks for an hour, but I was listening and I got really into it. Like, I know. I'm like, and now you paint this rock.
And you're going to get dirty. It was awesome. I mean, because kids are always just like, they'll freak out. That's just was a good.
That's right. These are all little, like, those little things I say, it's all things I picked up over many, many years of working with kids, that you just, all these little tools and phrases that you put in your pocket.
Right.
Funny, they just sort of start to emerge as I'm talking. Right? Yeah. That was from the Banksville teacher, to make sure to say, like, you know, because kids, you're right, that can stress them out if they don't like getting messy or things on their hands. Again, right. That sensory element too.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And I love too that I don't know, like, I guess that just reminded me that not everything has to be planned, and that, you know, you can find fun, and a lot of times our kids will show us that too. I think just how much fun they can have themselves with a rock or a blade of grass, or, you know, we don't have to plan out the day so much, and that we can kind of just create that learning in a natural environment. And
So well said, Jackie. I love that you said that, because right now, we're all again at home, and you don't need fancy art materials or fancy anything to have a great time. You can play and imagine with just yourself. You don't need anything at all. So the materials that we're using in this 5 to 6, it's really fun because I'm writing like lessons, thinking about really paper, pencils, scissors, if you have them, tape, if you have, you know, so it's very, very, everybody can find a material to use and something that.
Tearing.
That's right. Yes, thank you, Laura. That's right.
wow, well, I'm going to share that with some of my students and just let people know, because I think that, and especially too, that 5 to 6 is a nice time. Like, hey, let's just, did you call that open? I mean, that's more of like an open, you know, just have fun.
That's right. I always say this while I'm like doing the Art with ZART, which is what I'm calling it. But even in the classroom, artists, like, there's a myth like that we have to be by ourselves doing stuff. I'm telling you, I love being with people and creating art. Like, I say that all the time. Like, there's nothing more fun than seeing that people are joining in on Art with ZART. And I'm like, oh my gosh, people are hanging out with me and we're making art together. This is a blast, you know? So it's that creating that community, and we can create that like through screens. It's really neat.
It is wild. Yeah. Yay. Well, does anyone have any questions? Any other questions?
Nobody on Facebook Live is, they're just saying hello.
Okay.
We beginning our Barbara and Rose and Victoria are all on.
I love it. Hi, ladies. Oh, what fun. That's awesome.
Wow. I just really enjoyed myself tonight. I mean, this was a lot of, and you, I mean, I could just feel your passion, how much you love to do this.
I can tell you, I thought about this all day long and thought, oh, okay, I know, like, I love to talk, but like, okay, like, I don't have no notes in front of me. I'm just, you know, I'm, like you said, I'm just speaking from, it's passion, it's love. Yeah.
Well, it definitely shows, and we appreciate you sharing your time with us tonight.
And again, if anyone has any questions, like after the fact, let's say you have viewers that want to watch this, or I can make the slides available, whatever, I'm happy to be available to answer questions in the future too. So
thank you.
Yeah. And happy to come on and be a part of anything anyone's doing here. Also, if I can plug, so one thing, I'm doing something on Sundays, which is wellness. It's called Sunday Smiles. A lot of us like aren't able, again, we can't go to church, we can't go to whatever it is we do on Sundays to connect. We're creating a space, again, through Instagram Live. No, I'm sorry, it's on Zoom. Sorry about that. It's called Sunday Smiles, and it's music, it's art, and it's mindfulness. So it's just breathing and stretching. It's making a little bit of art and singing some songs. And you can RSVP sunday.smiles@hotmail.com. It's every Sunday, 11 to 11:30, and it's me plus 3 other really interesting women that have come together, and we're all doing a different component. So I'm doing the art part. We have a musician, we sing, and then we also do some yoga and stretching. So that's something else that is another way to create community. It's something else that you can be involved with. Sunday Smiles.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll put this stuff in our feed so everybody can look into things.
Cool. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Really fun. Thank you for having me tonight. And Victoria, thank you so, I call it Victoria Tinky. Tinky, thank you so much for hooking us up and linking all of us together. That's very important. So thank you. Thank you.
Yay. Yay. Well, thank you so much. And yay, I hope you'll come back and, you know, share more. Anytime.
We could do a group art, like where everyone creates art together in a Zoom. maybe a workshop, like a virtual art workshop too. So
That'd be fun.
outside the box. So I would love to be back anytime. So thank you all.
Yay. Thanks so much, Sarah. And then we have Wednesday book club tomorrow at 1. We have a live video with Patty on gaining some clarity during this time. We have Erin McCauley coming on Thursday evening. It's a Zoom call at 7:15. She's talking meditation in the 7 chakras, right, Laura?
Yes.
And then we have Saturday, our perspective talk, which we'll just pick a topic and we can kind of just have some discussion on that. So, yay.
Awesome.
Thanks, everybody.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank
What
you,
fun.
everybody, for hopping on.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.